Welcome back to the whole home. We are out in our third of an acre garden here in West Sussex. I'm Kezia and I'm going to show you around and what we have been doing in June. Our goal here from the beginning, if you've watched other videos in this series, has been to use this third of an acre to grow and raise as much of our own food as we can. That is a journey, it takes time, and we have cherries this year. Last year there were no cherries on this tree at all, and this year we've got a ton of almost ripe, yummy cherries. I'm excited about those. Okay, come down into the rest of the garden. Hi duckies! It is 27 degrees here today, and that's the hottest the ducks have ever seen, so they have been hiding out in the most shady, cool corner of soil they could find. But I think they're popping out for a little swim. Eventually the plan is to give them a fenced area, but we have loved having them free ranging. A lot of people have asked me, what's the duck poop situation? Anywhere they go, they're gonna poop. So you have to either embrace that or shut them away. It is gonna be in your yard if you have ducks, but also it is not a hot fertilizer, so it can go straight on your garden beds, straight on your grass. So they are immediately putting back really good nutrients into the soil. Our ducks have been the biggest win in the garden. Everyone says they eat slugs, but within a week of free ranging in our garden, they had demolished our slug population. They're now 11 weeks old. They've eaten through two 25-kilogram bags of food. So for me here, that has been about 30 pounds, which feels like such a win, about 3 pounds a week to feed them. And they provided a ton of joy, as well as great compost that can go in the garden. Okay, come on down. My son built us this birch arch. We've been trialing homeschool this term, which has been really fun to have the kids here for this growing season. And one morning, my son decided he wanted to make an arch. So he went and cut down the trees. We built an arch together. Eventually the leaves will come off and we'll be just left with a nice little arch entryway to our garden. Okay, this is our main growing space. It's about probably a fifth of the total third acre property. And right now it is taking a lot of water to keep it from dying. So other fruit trees we have here, a plum, which last year we just used for jam. And then we've got one cherry, another cherry, and then we planted 2 apples, which have produced no fruit for us this year, but they were 2-year-old trees that we put in bare root balls in the winter, so they're not doing much, but they are happily growing. I showed this on my last garden video, which you can see up here. Back in May, I showed what we were doing then, and we had just started this sweet pea tent, and they are growing up. They smell absolutely amazing. I'm taking some of them for cut flowers, but the goal is that hopefully they will become a little enclosed tent. But it's been a fun little project. This top bed here was one of the first things we planted out at the beginning of the spring. We shoved it full of potatoes and we harvested our first early potatoes about a week ago, and we've now got green beans in here which are growing up well. We could tell from the potato plants that this soil is probably not that great. I am learning about soil amending. If you have any brilliant tips, leave them. I am really just using bone and blood meal mix and then compost that we create here in our own garden. And I don't think I put anything on this bed. So we could tell the potato plants were not that great. These are also potatoes. We've done 3 rounds of potatoes, and these ones are so much thicker. We'll harvest these in a couple of weeks. So we knew we weren't gonna get a great yield. We got about 5 kilograms from this bed, and it was really fun for the kids to pull them up, weigh them, and then eat them. But now we've got beans coming in. My goal is that each time we pull something out, there's something else ready to go in. So that back space will have another round of beans in it soon. And then we're trying to use the greenhouse to grow seeds so that as soon as something else comes out, there is something else ready to go in that space. Over here, we've got more potatoes, which will come out in a couple of weeks, and then calendula, which I loved growing last year for cut flowers, but you can also use it for salves. And I might try some of that this year. So if you have a calendula recipe you love, or something you use it for, either food or non-food, I would love to know. You can leave that in the comments for me. And then back here are berries, which I'm pretty sure the birds are going to get every raspberry before we get them, but they are beginning. Our first little raspberries. Behind it you can see a wild plum tree that actually fell over. We had some really high winds a couple of weeks ago, and this one fell over. I think the roots have stayed intact because it's a week on and it is not remotely shriveled in this heat. So I think we just got ourselves a plum tree. Coming further down the garden, these are the raised beds that I put in at the end of summer last year in place of some big tires. I wanted to be careful with leaching and just the aesthetic. We've tried to base our garden aesthetic on what we have already rather than buying a lot of new things, to use what we already have. So all the bamboos, we have bamboos growing in the garden, and so we can use bamboos for the beans and the sweet peas. And then these pallet collars are really readily available on Facebook Marketplace, and so we could get and use all of those secondhand. The stones, which are now have so many weeds poking through, but they all came from a pond and weren't needed anymore. And then the stones, just we've acquired different stones to put in here. I'm trying to really base our garden aesthetic on what we have available and design from that, rather than create this big garden design and then get whatever we need to do that. We're trying to base everything on what do we already have, what do we have access to, and then garden from that place. One of the things that has made me so happy, that has been so successful this year, is peas. I have peas everywhere. They're one of my favorite vegetables. Whenever I've tried to grow them in the past, it just hasn't worked. I would say I have the ducks to thank for these peas, because when I first planted them out, the slugs were absolutely demolishing them. We got the ducks about 3 weeks after planting the peas, and they all came back to life with the ducks. So we now have a ton of mulch 2 and peas. You can see it is dripping in pods all through here. This side is kind of coming to its end, but there are so many mulch 2 and peas on this side. I planted more over there. They're going up there. They're everywhere in the garden because I love them so much, and they're growing well, which is such a victory. Chard we have down here. Is that going to, we've got a little black fly on the top of that, so I'm going to take the top of that out. Chard I love because in a small space you can grow greens really year round and do so many things with them. Eat them raw in a salad, cook them. I love having chard, so we'll probably add more of that as well. But that is a chard bed, beautiful rainbow chard that I love pulling from. All our tomatoes out. I planted them all out about 3 weeks ago, and they are doing well. I got all indeterminate varieties, so they will all continue growing. And we've got a ton of little tomatoes all over. I've got about 15 plants dotted through the garden. One of the struggles this season has been the bees. So we have a beehive down here at the bottom of the garden, or halfway down the garden. You can see them. I'm kind of standing in their flight path here. Hives can differ depending on the queen. This queen was the calm queen, but in the last few weeks, they have got aggressive. They are queen right, so they have a queen. That can make them angry if they don't have a queen. They have a queen. They have enough space in the hive. They are not hungry. They are putting away stores of honey really well, but for some reason they are not happy. So we've got to figure that out, because that is the one drawback of this space right here, is sometimes the bees come and dive bomb us. Okay. Like that. Took a little break there because I got stung by a bee in the middle of saying the bees have been really angry and aggressive this season, and I don't know why. I am a novice-ish beekeeper, 3-4 years into keeping bees. They are not happy. So I've got baking soda on. It can help to stop it swelling up. I do swell up, so we will see what happens. I also lost my earrings in the process. Welcome to real life in the garden. This is not what bees should be like. People keep backyard bees all over the world in actually really small backyard gardens, and we've had them for years without them being aggressive. So for some reason they're aggressive, and I'm going to figure out why, but this is not how it should be. Let's go see the greenhouse. So I've tried to harness every little space. So we added this bed in here. I didn't know how it would do. We've tried to watch the sun in the garden and where it hits, but this has actually been a really effective bed once we got the ducks. Everything in this bed got demolished pre-ducks by slugs. I came out one night and there was a slug on every single plant I put in here. But now we've got a load of tomatoes growing in here. I've got 3 or 4 tomato plants and a ton of purple and green peas in here. These are Blauschaka, I think. Purple on the outside, green in the middle. And delicious, they're so good. I've also put some of our raspberry plants here to try and extend our berries. Okay, in the greenhouse. It is so hot in here. Finish these peas. It is so hot in here. It takes a lot of water, but it's incredible. The growth of plants in here, the plants are twice the size of the ones outside. So this is another tomato in here, loads of fruit, Then we've got more tomatoes here. I took the heads off my tomatoes when they were small, and so we've got a number of big stems on each tomato. We'll see how that works out. We have also got some watermelon in here. So we planted watermelon last year and got some kind of baseball apple-sized watermelons. We put some more in this year. We started earlier. We will see what we get there. And then my rocket I've left here. This is on its way going to seed, if I pick one. You can see you've got these seed pods. We're going to wait until it's a really nice golden yellow flaxy color, and then we will harvest the seeds from last year, and that will be our second year of harvesting the seeds, which helps the plants adapt to where we are, which is amazing. I've got squash have gone in, so this is red curry squash, which will go out in some of the beds as we take things out. And then a lot of all of these little seedlings here are broccoli and cauliflower. We'll have way too many, but that's something we can harvest later on in the year and next year. What else? Oh yeah. And then another round of beans going in here, and I actually have sweat dripping off my forehead. Okay, that's everything in here. I can't help but extend the garden all the time. So my husband, who's behind the camera, came home one day and there's just another bed here. This will be a habit in the garden. I'm going to extend our growing space into as much of the garden as we possibly can. But over here, these broad beans are ready to come out. But we've got some beautiful, beautiful big broad beans in there, which we will harvest and then freeze / eat. They're pretty much all ready to come out. So we'll fill that maybe with some squash in there. We'll see, haven't decided yet. And then over here, more tomatoes. So these ones have also done really well. I wondered how they would do because this area is more shady, but these ones have also done well here. A rogue pea in there. Hi. Oh, that's so good. And then lastly down in here, we've got onions with a lot of weeds in there, but they're not ready to go yet. I may have planted them too late, but they are not big enough yet, but they're hanging out back there. And down here, we've got more potatoes. These are the potatoes that have grown the best. I'm interested to see the different yields in different places based on what we did with the soil. This was just a whole mishmash of things and a lot of pre-composted food that we put in and then put soil on top. This bed was more amended with bone meal, purchased compost and home compost, and then this bed had nothing. So we'll see the different yields we get from those 3 beds. The only other thing I'm not going to go near to show you is we have a little blueberry tree in here, and in my last video I showed you, and I took a guess on the soil because we have rhododendrons here. Rhododendrons like the same soil as blueberries, and it worked. I have one self-pollinating blueberry and it is through there with a lot of little blueberries on, so I'm really excited about that, and we're kind of seeing what works well, and then we'll adapt for next year and do more of what tends to do really well here. That is what's happening in the garden in June. Aggressive bees, a lot of things growing, a lot to harvest, save seed from. If you want to stick around, you can watch last month's garden video or the whole year and see how we're developing the garden. That playlist is here. If you want to watch the home education video, I will put that down here, or hit subscribe and you can follow along with the whole home journey.
Hello. Hello.